There's a leak in the studio. So funny story. We're in Idaho, and Idaho is part of the Great High Desert. The Great High Desert, where humidity is generally below 20% throughout the entire year. But for some reason, recently, it's decided to rain basically every single day. And despite the fact that we are an established organization that has been working in this building for a year and filming in this place for a while, this is the thing. So, I'm supposed to be filming 2 videos talking about our Filament. Filament is launching on Saturday, by the way. We'll have our brand new Slant filament. We're going to try to hit $10 a spool eventually. It will not cost that much on Saturday. It will be more. But it'll be filament made for our print farms, and we're going to try to make some reliable stuff for other print farms. So there's that. There's Filament. It's coming on Saturday. If you haven't already signed up for the email, there's a link down below. Sign up for that. We'll let you know when the Filament launches. It'll be a good deal. It'll be better than getting it on Amazon or something along those lines, especially if you want to buy a bunch of it. It's going to be a limited amount of material. So there's that. It's oddly mesmerizing. Oh, by the way, anybody who any of the older folks out there who know a fellow by the name of Craig Ferguson, a late night show host, came before James Corden years ago. Look up Craig Ferguson, Leak in the Studio, and you will have the best time of your life. I could only hope to possibly host a show as well as he could with a dribble of water coming through a professional studio. I'm just going to do that from now on. Just speak in between each one of the drips. Because what else would you do with something like that for the next half hour? Especially when there's 2 other videos that need to be filmed. What else can we do with the drip? Goodness. Fortunately, we pay a lot of rent for this building. So I'm glad that we only have 1 leak. It's the full length of the building, but it's only 1 leak. This building was built, I don't know, in the 70s or something like that. So it's a little bit older. So it has some leaks. We have been in here for a year, and they have not been fixed yet. Mainly because this side of this roof was built incorrectly. And we're not able to get it plugged up easily. But that was the least of our problems. This winter, we run a print farm where the entire building has to stay warm in order to keep the printers reliable. Fortunately, this winter, the gas lines broke. So we didn't have any heat for the 3 months out of the year. Nobody knew, but we still delivered everything on time, and humble brag. But it was sort of miserable. We had diesel heaters and propane heaters running throughout the facility to keep it warm. And lucky for us, we have a building with about 40 to 70 foot tall ceilings. So it was really easy to keep all of our hot air down low where we work on the ground. What a building. There was like a plan for this podcast at one point. Yeah, I talk about the filament, and then there's like news. I don't care. All of you guys have clipped off already anyway, just because you're going to whine down in the comments. I can't do it with the drip. Suck it up. I'm here in it. Still talking. And you don't even notice that there's a drip. All the time. Well, anyhow, the rest of the studio has been pretty good so far, though. We got our LED lights in the back. I got a remote for one of them. Right. Hey, give me back my thing. Change the colors there as much as we want to so that you'll see the rotation throughout all the time. The other one changes too, but it's on a separate button. And then we have our rotating Terminator head in the back there. We actually did make that ourselves. That was part of a product experiment that we were doing. We actually wanted hands and stuff inside of there, but we tested it out with that head. And then, of course, you've got the succulent pot, all kinds of books up here. What are the books that we've got? These books are interesting. I don't know what all of these are up here. Super Forecasting, Jab Jab Right Hook, Robot Builders Bonanza, The End of History and the Last Man. What is, Oh, this is an interesting book. I haven't been able to read it yet. So thank you all who tuned in for the 3D printing show. Let's go and do a book review, shall we? Now, it was a long... What the heck? Okay, back to book review. So it was a long time. An idea for a universal history. The historical imagination has never flown so far, even in a dream. For now the history of man is written the continuation of that of animals and plants. The universal historian finds traces of himself even in the utter depths of the sea, in the living slime. He stands astounded in the face of the enormous way that man has run, and his gaze quivers before the mighty wonder. The wonder, man who can see all the way. He stands proudly on the pyramid of the world process, and while he lays the final stone of his knowledge, he seems to cry out loud to listening nature. We are at the top. We are at the top. We are at the completion of nature. Nietzsche. There you go. 3D printing podcast with a leak. Read some Nietzsche from a book about history. What else we got? Well, anyhow, there's all those books up there. Patent it yourself. That's a waste of time. Here's a side topic, patents. We've never talked about patents before. Mainly because not a lawyer, but there's a leak in the roof. Whatever. I got to talk about something. We can't do anything official. Here, change that to red. That's more topical. Patents. All right. Patents are a waste of time. Here's the thing. I went to a patent lawyer a few years ago. No, actually, it was fairly recent. But I talked to him and I was telling him about how I don't really care about the patents that we get a hold of inside of the company. And he said, well, listen, Gabe, if you have a company with patents and a company without patents, you have the one with patents will sell for 3 times more than the one without. Doesn't matter if they're enforceable or anything else. If you just have a stack of the papers right there, your company's 3 times more valuable. This guy is a very credible source. He buys companies for a much larger company. But we were talking about it, and he went through that, and I was like, what a stupid decision-making process that just automatically, because the patents are there, not even if they're enforceable, not even if they're good, just if they're there. People hate doing patent paperwork so much that they'll pay 3 times more for an organization than one without the patent. It's stupid. And as far as patenting it yourself, go ahead and give it a shot. You still have to wait 5 years. You still have to pay a ton of money. And you just have a lot more misery. Here at Slant 3D, we care about patents, but we don't care about patents. We do it operationally and strategically in like that business context of like being 3 times more valuable. But they're not useful because if you patent something, you just told everybody what the plan was, what the formula was, you made it public, and you told everybody what you're doing. So if we file a patent, it's generally for something old that we've already kind of moved past, and it's just there for any bottom suckers to come suck up. But we're already way beyond that whenever we've done something. Hi. You know what? Classy show, professional organization. Yeah, that's not going to go no worse. Guys, I'm really sorry. We got to do something, but we can't do this. Just patunk. I could stare at that all night, though. You know, if you let it just be, it could be like some of that white noise music. the creaking of the wall, the drip of the ceiling, culminating in nothing. A slow form of Chinese water torture in one of the driest places on Earth. The rest of the studio, though, overall, besides this, it hasn't really been that bad inside of here. Apparently, this is a seasonal thing that we're going to have to deal with, so we're just going to have to make sure that a lot of videos are made before everything happens. But it's not the end of the world. Well, what the heck? Let's salvage this. Hopefully this video has come out by now. Ooh, no, I can't. I can't reveal that. This is a video I was supposed to film tonight. I cannot show what it is yet because it's going to be really good. We're really excited about this one. But yeah, the filament is out there. There will be only black, white, and gray when it releases. It will be PLA. It looks like the spools are going to cost about $16 to $17. I should say $16 to $20. We're fighting with the shipper. They're giving us kind of final word here to find out how much it's going to cost to move this stuff around so that we can get the final version of that released. It'll be over on the Angled.io website is where we'll launch these initial spools. And we'll have a much better release launch video than this coming out on Saturday. So that will be happening on Saturday. The filament will be released on Saturday. Get a hold of it. You can get yourself some cheap filament. We want to make sure that it's going to definitely be good quality. That's the main thing. We want to make sure that it's affordable or at least certainly competitive with everybody else out there. But we hope that this kind of verifies how much people want the filament. And then from that, we'll kind of scale up production and make it available for everybody else and formalize it. Based on how this run goes, we'll go ahead and build another website for just Slant filament or whatever it happens to be, to where we'll have these dedicated runs of filament. It will eventually turn into a subscription once we kind of get in the rhythm and can reliably get the stuff delivered to you guys on time and aren't doing it in batches anymore. We just have consistent stored inventory. The last couple of weeks, it's been really busy for us because apparently every client that we have has decided that they want all their parts right now. So the whole team's been really busy working on what our actual job is, which is making parts for people. No, we'll get the filament out and it's going to be really good stuff. Here at the beginning, it'll have a little bit more variance in it as far as like color, because we're nailing down both the material and the color densities that we want to use for the consumer filament. This is all stuff that we use ourselves. All of it will be totally printable, but we want to make sure that as we're doing this, that when you order black, the next roll of black you get will be exactly the same. And we want to make sure that that is consumer optimized. We can do it for ourselves inside of the print farm very easily because we're able to deal with the shenanigans within that, and we don't have to create a consumer package. But putting it now onto small spools, it will be coming on 1 kg spools here at first, but putting it on small spools complicates that a bit as far as keeping batches reliable and consistent, and what it's able to be used for, because we want to make sure that every single spool is good. Whereas in the farm, if we have one spool that's out of spec, we can push it off to the side and print like junk parts or functional pieces with it. But we got to make sure that that is identified earlier in the process so that we don't package up a spool that's out of whack. So we're just making sure that all the sensors and everything else are in place on the extrusion line to make sure that that is really reliable. But we're going to make mistakes throughout this whole process, because the difference between making an industrial product for internal use and making a product for consumers, it's a wide gulf there. It's like making a piece of software. We can deal with a little bug or a little weirdness inside of some software that we create because it still gives us better usability, but a consumer won't allow it. So anyhow, we're going to move on past that. Besides that, guys, we're going to fill the whole half hour. I don't care if it is leaking. We're going to go the whole way because I ain't a quitter. But besides that, there's a really cool thing I want to show you guys. You know what? Can you see that? This is a globe, a moon globe that is lit. I don't think we can probably see that well enough, but that's okay. Believe that it's lit, and it's got one of these inside. But we've been doing these moon globes, and we wanted to start doing these for music festivals. Swinging there so people don't have the darn light, so that in the rain, There's a little bit of light. We're practicing for the real world. Anyway, these things are really cool. And if anybody out there who is one of our viewers is like working in media or concerts and that kind of stuff, hit us up, because we're able to create basically a lithophane lamp that's a palm held, because we've got these nifty little LED modules now. And it's something that people can take to the concert, wave around, and we can make millions of these. So if there's like a concert tour, it's a way more interesting piece of merchandise. We really love promotional merchandise, and a lot of what we do here is kind of in that realm, because 3D printing is able to customize at scale. And by that, I mean make 10,000 of a custom item and then make 10,000 of another custom item, not one original item. That's still really, really hard to do. But this large production items right here, where this would cost a whole rotational mold or something like that, plus assembly and all the rest of it, whereas we're able to just crank these suckers out, and you can sell them for $5 or $10 at a concert venue, and everybody's able to make money off of them. So they're a really great application. If anybody out there sees anything like that, let us know, because it's really cool. What else is happening? This is a perfect excuse to stare at the ceiling. We can see the holes in the roof and the other places where water is aggregating. Fortunately, it's not dangerous. It's only leaking past a few electrical cables, mainly the ones powering our exit sign. So that's good. Fortunately, our piece of safety is perfectly safe, or going to kill us all. And I'm standing in a mild puddle of water with a bunch of extension cords to electrical equipment around. What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, guys, you know what? I got to fill up the rest of this. So long as this is a wasted podcast anyway, we're still going to publish this. This is totally going to be published. We're going to go out there live. We publish every week. We have a podcast every Thursday. If there's a leak, what am I going to do? Pick up the camera like a peasant? Never. The tripod's set right there. This is where we are. All right, fine. I'm just going to do a comment read. We got news and stuff over there. To heck with that. I'm just going to go through recent comments and see what we got going. Manuel Camelo says, glorious and divine. What is he talking about? Oh, he's talking about the thumbtacks. Thank you, Manuel. Appreciate that. The thumbtacks were a nifty thing when we started using them. They do help. Even though like tree supports are able to do some of the stuff that like thumbtacks are able to do, the thumbtack is able to really focus support and create a very controlled output. We're doing a video where we're talking about STL versus CAD. The thumbtack is an example of using CAD, and you always want to control the part within CAD as much as possible because it gives you more control. Slicers are a little bit on the magic-y side where you don't really know how they make decisions, and you can't always control them in a direction because they're a piece of software. So anything you can move in CAD where you have a good thumb on the whole thing is generally the best way to make something, especially for mass production. So that's why we use thumbtacks more than like auto-generated supports like tree supports and that kind of stuff. And the thumbtack is just more reliable than most supports because supports have to have separation. Okay, let's see here. What type of filament would you recommend for electronics? Brett Tech asked this. You can use any filament for electronics, Brett. There's really none of them that is implicitly wrong, except for there's some dangers with like there's some dangers of static buildup with certain materials, like PLA and PETG can have a small amount of static buildup. Generally, this isn't anything that's relevant unless you're doing really high sensitivity electronics. But then in that case, you would use actually an ESD filled material so that it's able to electrostatic dissipative filament. That way you don't have to worry about somebody walking on a rug and then shocking your chip or your board or your enclosure there. Let's see here. Xeno1250. Toyotaism and its consequences have been a disaster for mankind. Have the COVID pandemic shortages of everything taught everyone nothing? This was in a comment to one of our shorts, The Right Way to Use Mass Production 3D Printing, where we talked about 3D printing is able to produce parts just in time. It's a perfect form of just-in-time production because we don't have to tool up. We can just turn on the machines and make more parts. And yes, this did hurt Toyotaism, but to be fair, the people with supply shortages from using the Toyota production system, which is lean manufacturing, where you have as few parts on hand as you can in order to just match what you need, and then you go from there. Much of modern manufacturing has kind of bastardized Toyotaism. Well, I shouldn't call it Toyotaism, the Toyota production system. Where everybody's taken it to a very far extreme without any sort of buffers. And that is stupid. And that is why American automakers ran out of parts first, but Toyota was still able to operate about 6 months longer than anyone else because they actually store up some inventory. We don't believe in you going inventory free, but we do think it's stupid to store inventory for an entire year. But it is also equally stupid to store inventory for only one day and assume that the trucks are going to run on time. That is also bad supply chain management. 3D printing is more valuable because, number one, since items don't have to ship as far, because print farms are able to be closer generally, you have much less risk of a supply chain disruption. Also, since print farms don't have a single point of failure, as in that factory with that one special machine with your mold, print farms can basically fire up anywhere and grow your parts anywhere in any given compatible print farm. You have more design chain supply chain reliability. So the idea that just-in-time manufacturing is a failed idea is incorrect. It's a very good idea, but it's been taken to such an extreme to where people had such small inventories in order to be super lean and have nothing in inventory. And no cash sitting on the warehouse floor, basically, because that's what you're doing. It's not a failed idea. It's very good. It's just the implementation of it swung the pendulum in too far of a direction. Now it's coming back kind of to even, and everybody kind of keeps a good number of parts on hand just in case something goes weird. Though, quite frankly, within manufacturing itself, people learned the lesson for like a year, and already people are going back to kind of the same old ways because they're like, it's normal now. Right here, the mass production potential of 3D printing. Stuart Whalen, 3258. That's 25,000 a day. That's low production. So no, mate, you're nowhere near mass production levels. Hang on, I'm going to give him the Australian accent he used, mate. That's 25,000 a day. That's low production. So no, mate, you're nowhere near mass production levels. And I'm sure Stuart Whalen, 3258, talks just like this. Well, listen, mate. 25,000 a day is actually a very appreciable production. There's very few items in the world that ever need millions of units in a year. And the only reason certain factories produce 25,000 units of some part in a day is because they're going to make 25,000 of some part today, and then next week they're going to be making 25,000 of some other part because they swapped out the mold. There is no reason to produce that many units because they're never consumed that quickly in almost any application, regardless of what you're doing. Walmart doesn't sell 25,000 mops in a day across all of their stores. Never happens. 25,000 is the metric that Toyota, one of the leading mass production services on the planet, uses as mass production. Cars are one of the most mass-produced items on the planet. They are the most popular items on the planet because every human generally needs one. They're like a toothbrush or a phone. So comparing to a Toyota level of production is very reasonable. No, we're not making phones where you have to replace 1 billion of them every year. But the vast majority of manufacturing is in that 5,000 to 25,000 unit range, whereas in that range, you've probably got, actually, I shouldn't throw out some percentage there, but I know it's more than half of all manufacturing is in like that volume. So even though, oh no, we're not making every freaking iPhone case, 25,000 is very high up. And actually, Slant 3D is more affordable than injection molding up to 100,000 units. Which is so far into the extreme and rare production levels that it doesn't even matter. And it's not a large portion of any sort of manufacturing business quite often. Heck, they don't make taco shells in those kind of patches. Well, that's not true. Taco shells and food do go around there. Let's see here. Orange microfiber 9740. I used to work at a thermal management company. Educating the customer and drilling down to their actual issues was always step one. It would go something like, do you have a cooling problem or a heat sinking problem? Cooling is below room temp. Heat sinking is being above room temp and getting back to it. Specific example. But yeah, this was about common mistakes to avoid with better manufacturing. There's not much more I can add to that. It's basically, if you are in manufacturing, you're in a partnership. And it's very important to have a very clear line of communication in that conversation. Let's scroll way down. Let's go way to old stuff. Let's go back a couple weeks. We recently had a video that got 2.5 million views, and the number of negative comments in that was way better. Let's find some of those. $5 filament win from Waffle Cart. So $5 filament in most consumer filaments like PLA currently is basically impossible. You cannot source the raw resin for like PLA affordably enough to even possibly make $5 filament around. That being said, plastics in itself is doable. It depends on what the plastic is. Theoretically, like ABS could hit that kind of a number. But the problem there is that there's not enough meat on the bone with the putting the filament in the box to make it worth it. Somebody would have to order like a pallet of filament of ABS in order to make that even remotely interesting or remotely viable. In order to make it interesting, though, there's not really a world where that works because even if you can make filament for $5 a spool, why would you? Everybody else is buying filament right now for $25. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot simply to make a point. We're going to hit $10 filament per spool. And the way we're going to get around that is because we don't really have to make money off of the filament. This filament push that we're doing, the way we're benefiting from this is, number one, sure, we get to sell filament. We're going to make a little bit of profit on that. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is maximize the utilization of our extrusion lines so that over time, we're able to make sure that those lines are run as long and continuously as possible, because that means all the labor around it, all the materials within it, all the startup and shutdown around it is as little as possible. So you're able to make the raw materials for our farms much more cheaply. So by making filament for all of you guys and basically breaking even on it or making a little bit of margin on it, we increase the efficiency of the rest of our operations so much that it pays for itself. So that's kind of the reason, the financial reason that we're doing it. The other reason that we're doing it is kind of just to push other manufacturers a little bit, because it should not be as expensive as it is. Plenty of you guys are moving enough material to justify lower prices that help this industry scale up. And we don't want to have to be our own internal supplier. We should be able to call up a filament supplier and get what we need. And we can't right now. So this is kind of us doing this is sort of a wake up call for them to show that it can be done. This is how you do it. And this is what they're going to have to do to be able to work with us, because we're going to build millions of 3D printers that are going to produce as many parts as what Amazon delivers in a day. So $5 filament, we may get there internally for our stuff, but we can't sell it for that. It's not even, you can't even pay the taxes on it that way, especially if you have to use like PLA, because it's just too expensive. Palm 4708, I swear this guy wants people to hate 3D printing. Listen, I think I know the context of this because this was a short, and in a short there can be absolutely zero context whatsoever. This is why we don't really like this format very much. But I think I'm being fairly belligerent in that video, and that's not that odd for me. I'm belligerent in a lot of our videos, but he wants people to hate 3D printing. It's a short. If you want attention in a short, you have to be bold. We're running a YouTube channel with this, as professional as it is. And in order to do that, there's certain kinds of things that you have to do. We don't want to continue doing that, though, because we stopped doing that content, even though it's the most successful video that we've done. Like, one of them got 4 million views, one of our shorts, or 2 million views. It's a huge number of views. But they've let people like this into the community, and we don't really want that around because it's not helpful. It doesn't add anything to the conversation. It's just a person late at night watching shorts that they shouldn't be watching, and that they don't know anything about, quite frankly. So we're going to pull away from shorts because we don't want to be a mass market channel. We want to be a useful channel for our clients and for the people interested in mass production 3D printing. So there's that. But well, that's enough of the comments. This is probably one of our longest podcasts, even though it should have been one of the shortest. But if you guys lasted through here, thank you so much. Hopefully it dries out next week and we'll move on from there. But thank you guys so much for watching. And have a great day. Hopefully it's a dry one.